Hey, what's up everyone, Raging Golden Eagle here, having way too much fun as always. So some of you who've been with me for a while may remember the video I made a few months back about how I view Generation Z as being the anti-Millennials. And it seems a lot more of the mainstream is finally starting to catch on to that. Why the generation after Millennials will vote Republican. Now we're going to get into this a little bit in the article later, but I just want to say right now, Republicans, don't get your hopes up too high. These guys are more Trump Republicans than what's now considered establishment Republicans. You're not going to get them on your side with the same old shit that was rejected this past election. So as long as you remember that, we're cool. Say hello to Generation Z, the most recent to come of age. It is the youth of America with its oldest members in their early 20s. And I know what some of y'all are thinking. Aren't these the same whiny college kids we're always complaining about here? I mean, they're of the right age. Well, yes and no. First off, it's to be expected that the beginning of this next generation is going to pick up some habits from the previous one since they're pretty much right next to each other, they're basically the same. And second off, even in college, things are changing. Since one of the sources for a study mentioned in this article happens to be a whole bunch of colleges and universities. Analyzing research from Wright State University in Ohio on 1,200 Generation Z students at 15 colleges and universities across the country, Brower also used exit polling from CNN and census data to draw his conclusions. And if a good chunk of this data just came from college students, you gotta imagine what the real numbers are gonna be like. In fact, if I were to have any concerns about this next generation, this one is probably the biggest. Generation Z is also more religious than preceding generations, attending organized weekly church services at about twice the rate of Millennials, Gen Xers, and Baby Boomers. Now, before anyone flips out, if these are the more moderate religious people we've come to know in this country lately, the kind that's actually capable of the live and let live philosophy, then hell, I got no problem with it. My only concern is that they don't follow the previous generations in becoming moral authoritarian busybodies intent on forcing their subjective values on everyone else. If that can be avoided, then hey, no problems here. And the best part though is we finally have a generation there that may be viewed as libertarian. Politically, Generation Z is liberal moderate with social issues like support for marriage equality and civil rights, and moderate conservative with fiscal and security issues. While many are not connected to the two major parties and lean independent, Gen Z's inclinations generally fit moderate Republicans. Or again, libertarians, or classical liberals if you want to use that term. The Republican Party, if it plays its cards right, could make lasting inroads with this generation, even at an early age, something the GOP has struggled with for decades. And as I alluded to at the very beginning, they still would be struggling with this pretty hardcore had an establishment candidate won the nomination this last election as opposed to Donald Trump. My only hope is that the Republican Party actually learned from that. If you take anything away from Trump's nomination, it's that the people are so fed up with establishment Republicans and what they stand for that they went and showed their displeasure by electing Donald Trump. And as more of the older establishment Republicans die off and are replaced with Generation Z, if the party wants to stay relevant, they better adapt and get with the times. And you are already seeing these guys' impact on the election results. Last year was the first presidential election in which Generation Z voted, according to Brower. Yet there was virtually no attention paid to this demographic. And the reason for that is, well, the next sentence. In fact, in almost every case, its members were simply lumped in with their significantly different counterparts, the Millennials in the 18 to 29 age group. And now that I see this, I'm actually pretty curious. I wonder if anyone out there has data that's split up by individual ages, for instance. Because it would be pretty funny to see the younger end of that spectrum voting more Republican. That's of course something establishment Democrats will never want to get out because they're supposed to be the youth party. But even without the breakdown, we can see it in the overall numbers. From 2012 to 2016, Democratic candidates lost 5% of the youth vote nationally, down from 60% to 55%. In Florida, Democrats' margin of victory among the young dropped 16 percentage points. In both Ohio and Pennsylvania, the drop was 19 points. In Wisconsin, 20 points. Man, I wonder if this demographic may have been responsible for swinging the election into Trump's favor. And this is one of the things I actually agree 100% with Steven Crowder on. In order for the Republicans to win, they don't need to get all the youth vote or all the black vote. Just give up on it. Like, for the sake of argument, assume you're never going to get it all. But if you can take it from, say, 90% to only 70%, that may very well be enough to swing the election in your favor. And they go on to explain the drop, well, pretty much almost like I just did. It is unlikely that such significant drops are simply due to the more liberal millennial generation changing their minds from one election to the next. It is more likely that the precipitous drops were due to the more conservative Generation Z being able, for the first time, to express their political inclinations, especially in the economically hard-hit swing states. So yeah, overall, a lot more good news as far as I'm concerned. And at least from what I've seen myself, Generation Z tends to be leaning a lot more libertarian than establishment Republican. So if we're lucky, maybe we can avoid that hard swing to the right to make up for the hard swing to the left we've had over the past 8 years. Though I fully expect these guys to try. They're gonna fail, but man, are they gonna try. Honestly, at this point, my biggest fear is the establishment Democrats and Republicans simply banding together, knowing that their days are numbered, and in their death throes simply doing as much damage as they can on their way out. Cause if you look closely, there's a lot of stuff that establishment Democrats and Republicans agree on. Both sides are moral authoritarian busybodies that want to control you, quote unquote, for your own good. The only thing they disagree on is what's most important to implement first. If ever they agree to attack an issue together, like say porn, that's when we gotta be concerned and fight back as hard as we can. Cause looking at these statistics on Generation Z, their days are numbered. All we have to do is stop them from causing any massive damage on their way out. And that's all I gotta say, guys. Thanks for listening.